Hi, this is Chris for Drums Bonedo. Welcome back to a new video. Some of the most common comments we get on this channel are about tuning snares. Okay, so today I'm just going to show you how I tune my snares and the test snares that you get to see here on the channel. Small disclaimer at the beginning, Dario Germany was kind enough to provide us with an Evans UV1 Tune Up Kit, and they are also a sponsor of this video, but otherwise have no influence on what is said here. If you want to know more about the Evans Tune Up Kits, check the links in the video description below. I had to think a bit about which snare from my arsenal I should use for this video, but I rather quickly decided on my vintage Pearl from the 1970s. Unlike the brass version, which was used by Stuart Copeland on the first Police recordings, this snare is very affordable. You can find it used for around 120 euro here in Germany. The drum has a 14x5 steel shell, flange tubes and 10 lugs. Let's start by unpacking the Evans Tune Up Kit. It basically contains everything you need to give your snare a complete makeover. An UV1 beta head, a Hansi 300 Resonant head and Pure Sound custom pro wires. Also included is a tuning key and a pair of EQ pods for damping. The kit is completed with a polishing cloth, 3 bags with a lug lubricant and metal polish, and even a pair of high quality Pro Mark 5A sticks. The tune-up kits are available with different beta heads, for example with the popular HD Dry or with the Calftone. But if you want to learn to tune, I would always recommend starting with the single ply beta head that has no additional damping or special features. This is the best way to hear the pitch on each lug and also the general overtones.
So the first thing that I'm going to do is take off the old wires and the resonant head, and with an Evans drill bit and a cordless screwdriver it can be done quite quickly. On this drum the butt end has still normal screws, so I carefully remove them with a screwdriver. And after that I will take the polishing cloth and wipe once over the edge to remove all the dust and little dirt that has been collected there. So now I place the resonant head on the bottom of the drum. And I will put the hoop back on and place the tuning screws above the lugs. I don't need a lot of tools for tuning, I only use one tuning key. I know many people use 2 keys, but this has proved to be easier for me. And I also have a felt mallet that I will later use, that's to make it easier to hear the pitch of the individual lugs. As with all drums, whether bass drum, toms or snare, I first tighten the screws finger tight until I notice that they have contact with the hoop. Take your time until you are sure that the head is evenly positioned. The cool thing about the Evans products is that they lie flat straight out of the box, and this makes it incredibly easy. And I sometimes tap with my fingers too. And here you can see me going back and forth, because I really want to make sure that every screw is just barely touching the hoop. And you can see the wrinkles on the part where the snare bed is located. And I will be giving those 4 screws a little more attention. Now that all the screws are finger tight, I tune the head crosswise in quarter turn upwards. And I will move clockwise and skip 1 screw at a time, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once again, I start at the 1 o'clock position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I will do this a third time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's important that you do just a quarter turn. You can see it in detail. Not a half, not a full turn, just a quarter turn. So now I hit the drum head nearby the individual lugs with a mallet and tune finely all around. And I make sure that the individual screws have a similar, or in best case, even identical pitch. I generally tune the resonant head on the snare as tight as possible, but only so that it can still be pressed in very slightly. Why am I doing this? The idea behind the snare resonant head is that it transfers the energy of the better head to the wires. In addition, every snare with a tightly tensioned resonant head sounds crisper and more compact. If the resonant head has too little tension and is tuned more like a tom, the drum will sound hollow and washed out, and you often can hear this with beginner drummers. Now we'll continue on the top side. I put the fresh head on, the hoop, and position the screws. I turn finger tight again. I'm again checking for a constant pitch, even in this very low finger tight status. And here I'm tuning again the head upwards crosswise in quarter turns. And I will do this time 2 runs. And make sure that I tune the better head as evenly as possible. And if you're unsure at this point because the drum sounds unclean or unbalanced, you can simply loosen all the screws again, go back to finger tight status, and then start from the beginning. My biggest mistake in the beginning was that I made too large turns on individual screws, which caused the head to be unevenly tensioned. So you have to practice this for a while to get a feel for how far you turn the key and what happens to the drum head and the overall tension. In general, flanged hoops like on this snare here make it easier because they react together with the head in the tuning process. Before I go into the detailed tuning, the snare wire has to be fitted. To do this, I obviously turn the drum over again, and the snare should be mounted with identical spacing and parallel to the edge. This Pure Sound Custom Pro model here has 20 steel spirals, which corresponds to a standard model. The 2 straps are provided with a tape measure-like print, so it's quite easy to install them precisely. I always start mounting the wires on the butt inside. And when I'm mounting the wires on the strainer side, I make sure that the lever is released while I'm tightening the screws. So now I will turn the drum around and we'll tap it to check the snare response, and yes, sounds good. So this is how the drum sounds after the basic tuning process that you just saw. So it's open, quite low, but I think it sounds fat. So here you can hear the drum in a medium high tuning, and with the only detuning hack that I like to use from time to time, where I detune the lug at 6 o'clock, so between my legs. And this results in a, I don't know, fuller, more throaty singing tone. And after that I tune it back up and adjust the snare tension. Speaking of snare wire adjustment, so here's one in a very, very low tuning. The resonant head is still tight, but I almost got no tension on the beta head, and also used 2 of the Q pods to dampen the head. You know, to achieve that fat sound, you have to loosen the snare wires quite a bit. So here's the final sound file in a very high tuning, and you can clearly hear how the mixture of rim shots with the UV1 head results in a nice cutting sound.
Okay, let's sum it up with a few additional tips. The first is to practice. Yes, that's right, just like rudiments, playing to a click track or learning to keep a steady backbeat, you need to practice tuning your drums. Take the time to learn the necessary practical skills and the relationship between the tension of the heads. As I mentioned before, it is best to practice with flange tubes 1.6 or 2.3 mm and a non-predamped single-ply head. Stiff cast tubes are usually harder to tune, and unlike flange tubes, do not work with the head tension in the same way. A predamped head like the HD Dry will be more forgiving of small imperfections, but you will also learn less about whether the snare is really in tune. Secondly, if you can recognize pitches, so hear which note is higher and lower, this is extremely helpful. There are also various apps, TuneBot, etc. on the market, and I have tried some but ended up that I'm always quicker when tuning with my ears. In my opinion, there's no ultimate truth, for example, that a resonant head must have so and so many hertz, etc. Every drum sounds slightly different. This is due to the heads, the shell material, the shell depth, and of course the hardware. The only tool I like to use from time to time is the Tama tension watch. It makes it easy to determine if the head is sitting evenly. Sometimes 1 or 2 lugs are off a bit and it's tricky to find out which ones they are. The tension watch can help here. But in the end I would still use my ears to decide whether I like the sound. It's strange, but some drums sound better if not all the lugs are tuned 100% the same. That adds a bit of character. And the most important skill is to develop a sound idea in your head. In other words, have a precise imagination of the finished sound before you start the tuning process. How do you want the snare to sound? Deep and fat or funky a la James Brown? If you have mastered the basic tuning process, try to practice going for a specific sound over and over again. To reproduce your favorite tuning in a different place or with a different drum, I would recommend you record the drum briefly and have the sound file on your phone. This is what Gavin Harrison does, for example. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Feel free to leave me a comment and I wish you happy tuning.